Welcome to the Auditor Estate Uniform Accounting Network screencast for completing a complicated bank reconciliation with multiple discrepancies. In this screencast, we will cover how to complete the bank reconciliation Excel spreadsheet to identify potential errors so you can apply corrections in the UAN software that will allow you to reconcile your bank statement with the UAN software. The Excel spreadsheet should be used after you've completed a bank reconciliation in UAN, and a red check mark still appears, which indicates the balances are not reconciled in UAN. I have entered data in the UAN software which will provide a real-life example of multiple discrepancies between the UAN software balance and the balance at the bank. The example errors in the data, UAN or bank related, will give you a better understanding of how to correct various discrepancies between the balances in UAN and the bank. The data set is not designed to mimic your specific entity, but rather provide a broad range of issues I've seen clients encounter in my years at UAN. If an example does not apply to your entity, you may skip ahead to the next example in the screencast. If your UAN computer has internet access, click on the State Seal of Ohio in the upper left corner of UAN. This is a direct link to our UAN Link website. Click on the Training tab, Online Training Recordings, Accounting, and then see the Bank Reconciliation section. Click on the Bank Reconciliation worksheet, and then click Open. If you receive a security alert, say yes. The Bank Reconciliation spreadsheet will open in Excel. To begin from the spreadsheet, print the following reports: the cash journal for the month you are reconciling, the last posted bank reconciliation, the payment listing for the month you are reconciling, and the receipt listing for the month you're reconciling. I'll give you a path to find each report. So we'll go into Accounting, Reports and Statements, Cash Reports, and we're going to display the cash journal for March. Now I'm going to minimize this and we'll come back to it later. The second report we need is our last posted bank reconciliation. We'll stay in Accounting and then Reports and Statements, Bank Reconciliation Reports. Our last posted bank reconciliation was in February. We'll choose that bank reconciliation and display. Again, I'll minimize this, we'll come back to it later. The third report we need is the payment listing for the month we're reconciling. Accounting, Reports and Statements, Payment Reports, and then I'll select all the payments and display. Finally, we'll do our receipt report, which is the receipt listing, and we'll select all the receipts and display. Before we begin step 1, we have some other considerations. We want to identify other adjusting factors from the prior bank reconciliation. While we're on the subject, we'll go ahead and scroll down to step 8. Step 8 gives us a description of other adjusting factors. So here's our reminder. Entering another adjusting factor will not solve your reconciliation issues, unless it is an issue that will be resolved in the subsequent month. Common examples would be a posting error by your bank, or an adjustment that you made in UAN that could not be posted in the current reconciliation month. The Other Adjusting Factor tab could be utilized in these situations because the error should wash out in next month's reconciliation. The timing issues are no longer entered in the system as another adjusting factor. If you see that a payment and/or receipt has been posted at the bank but hasn't been entered in UAN, save the current bank reconciliation, post the payment or receipt, and go back and edit the bank reconciliation by clearing the payment or receipt you posted. We'll do that in our example coming up later in the class. Make sure the post date of the payment or receipt is post dated in the month you're reconciling. Electronic payments, manual payments, and receipts can all be backdated to the date of the last bank reconciliation. Printed warrants cannot be backdated, and there will be no future software enhancement to allow this. If you need to enter a printed warrant, then you may utilize the Other Adjusting Factor tab to reconcile for this month, and the payment will wash out in the subsequent bank rec. If a payment and/or receipt is posted in UAN but hasn't hit the bank statement yet, then leave it outstanding or unchecked on the bank reconciliation form. Receipts will carry forward as a deposit in transit. Payments will remain outstanding and will carry forward to next month's reconciliation. So now that you have a better understanding of what an other adjusting factor is, I'll show you in the software you can find the other adjusting factor that carried over from the previous month. We already have the bank reconciliation report minimized. And as you can see on our bank rec for the end of February, we have another adjusting factor of negative $119.20. And we'll take care of that in the subsequent month. Step 1. Compare the ending balance of the last bank reconciliation to the starting balance of the current bank reconciliation. Our current UAN balance, as of our last bank rec date, is located on line 5 of the bank reconciliation report. Go back into UAN. Our bank rec report's already minimized. As you can see, on line 5, our current UAN balance as of February 28, 14 is $778,681.01. Go back to our spreadsheet, and we're going to enter that information in. Our beginning balance on the cash journal, as of the month that we're reconciling, is on line 1 of the cash journal. We already have that report minimized as well. I'll bring it up. Obviously, I'll need to zoom in so you can see it. As you can see, it's $778,681.01. If line 3 is 0, proceed to step 2. If line 3 is not 0, then transactions were posted in the system or at the bank on days in between the reconciliation date of the last bank reconciliation and the start date of the current bank reconciliation. As you can see, line 3 is 0, so we're ready to move on to step 2. Step 2. Compare cleared receipts to the credits on the bank statement. So the first thing we need to do is find out the total credits on our bank statement. I've created my own UAN checking account here. I've done the best I can to mimic what you would see from your bank. So you can see we've got our dates, check numbers, deposits, debits, and credits, and our balance from UAN Bank. So if we scroll down here, we can find the total credits on our bank statement of $102,761.05. So I'll go back into our bank rec worksheet. And enter in our total credits. Also, the interest would be located on our checking account, and it's $419.96. So go back to our bank rec worksheet and enter in our interest. Line 3 will add itself, and for line 4 we need to find our cleared receipts, which is located on our primary receipts tab on the bank reconciliation form. So we'll go back into UAN, we'll click on the primary receipts tab, and our cleared receipts equal $102,761.05. Go back to our bank rec worksheet and we'll type that in. If line 5 is 0, proceed to step 3. If line 5 is not 0, then receipts were posted in the system that have not hit the bank statement yet, or vice versa. Review the receipt listing and compare the bank statement to verify cleared receipts and amounts. If an error exists in the receipt amount, and it is a bank error, then another adjusting factor can be utilized until the bank corrects the error. If the amount is incorrect in UAN, then a receipt adjustment may be utilized, and accounting, utilities, receipt utility, adjust. Now, just from looking at step 2 here, I think it's pretty obvious what our discrepancy is. We forgot to post our interest in UAN. But I will show you the receipt listing and compare it to the checking account just so you can see what we're talking about. So we'll go into UAN. Our receipt listing's already open. I'll just drag this over here to the side and split the screen. We don't see our interest receipt here, do we? If we go back to our checking account, you can see our interest is listed here, posted on the last day of the month for $419.96. We don't have an amount on our receipt listing equaling that amount. We forgot to enter our interest. So we can minimize our checking account for now, minimize the receipt listing. We know where our error is. Remember, we have to save and then close out of the bank rec form before we can post any transactions that may affect the bank reconciliation. To post our interest receipt, we'll go into Accounting, Transactions, Receipts, Add, Interest. So for the source of the receipt, it's going to be our checking account. And remember, our receipt, deposit, and post date need to be posted in the month that we're reconciling. So they need to be posted for March 31st. The total amount of our receipt was $419.96. Now I'm just going to distribute it proportionally by the pooled fund balance. Everything looks correct. Save. I'll close the form. We need to post and print. Now I don't have a printer hooked up to this computer, so we'll just have to cancel out of there. We'll say yes, it printed successfully. Now we can go back to our bank rec form, edit and post. You'll see we get our system message. Transactions have been posted since this bank reconciliation was saved. Some calculations may have changed. That's a good thing. We'll say OK. Go back to our primary receipts tab. As you can see, our interest receipt shows up to clear. We'll check the box and see that our interest receipts have been saved. Go back to our bank reconciliation worksheet. And now for step 4, I can go ahead and enter in this balance, which is 103,181.01. Line 5 will calculate itself. It's now 0. Now before we move on to step 3, as you can see on our bank statement, we have this receipt out here for $100. If we go back to our checking account, the deposit here is for $10. We see that we have this standard receipt for $100. If I clear this receipt, it changes our amount to 103,281.01. Go back to our bank reconciliation worksheet. If I enter in that amount, we come up with another discrepancy. If we go back to our checking account, we'll see that we have a credit here, and the bank only posted it for $10. Seems like they left out a 0. So that's going to cause some problems. This is going to be a bank error. And the way that we fix bank errors is through another adjusting factor. So, our bank balance adjustments, should this be a deflating or inflating? Well, the total discrepancy of underposted receipts. So it would be a deflating bank error of $90. Nothing changes on our spreadsheet. We know it's a bank error, and we can go ahead and clear that out next month once they get it resolved. Once we're finished finding all the discrepancies in receipts, we can move on to step 3. Step 3. Compare cleared payments to the debits on the bank statement. The first thing we need are debit warrants located in our checking account statement. We'll go back to our checking account, scroll down to the bottom, and we'll see our total debits equal $30,010.23. We'll go back to our bank reconciliation worksheet and enter that amount in. Now we need the debits for electronic payments located on the bank statement if they're not included in the debits balance above. Now on our checking account statement, we didn't separate out electronic payments from warrants, but your bank may do that. So we just wanted to put that information in. For this screencast, we're just going to leave that field blank on our bank rec worksheet. Line 3 will calculate itself, adding line 1 and line 2. Now we need the cleared payments located on the primary payments tab on the bank reconciliation form. Go back into UAN, and our cleared payments equals $28,181.57. Line 5 will calculate itself, subtracting line 4 from line 3. And as you can see, we have a discrepancy here of $1,828.66. So we're going to have to do some investigating. If line 5 is 0, we'll move on to step 4. If line 5 is not 0, you need to make adjustments or the bank may have a posting error. If an error exists in the payment amount and it is a bank error, then another adjusting factor can be utilized until the bank corrects the error. If the amount is incorrect in UAN, then a payment adjustment may be utilized in Accounting, Utilities, Payment Utility, and Adjust. So we're going to investigate our payment listing and compare that to our checking account. So I'll pull up our checking account, and I'll also pull up our payment listing. This is probably the best way to do it, just do a side-by-side comparison. So our first discrepancy, as we can see, is our first line item. $19,690 is the payment, and as you can see, the bank has debited for $200. But on our payment listing, we only put it in for $20. This is a mistake that we made in UAN. So we're going to close out. Remember that you'll have to close the bank reconciliation form before you can make a change on transactions. And we need to go into our Accounting, and then Utilities, and the Payment Utility. We'll find warrant number 19,690. Check the box and click the Adjust button. The Adjust Payment form will open. Our purpose is a posting error. Remember to date this adjustment in the month that we're reconciling, which is March. And adjustments to existing lines must be entered directly on the existing lines. So we'll click right on the zeros in the adjustment column. They'll light up in blue, allowing us to make changes. So our current amount is $20, but it should have been $200. So our adjustment amount is going to be $180. If you want to see the revised amount, you can hit the Tab key on the keyboard. Everything looks correct. I'll click the Post button. We don't need a report. And now I can go back into our bank reconciliation. We see, please note, transactions have been posted since this bank reconciliation was saved. Some calculations may have changed. We'll say OK. Go back to our Payments tab, and we'll clear this payment. Our cleared payments amount is now $28,201.57. We'll go back to our bank reconciliation form and change that amount. As you can see, we still have a discrepancy of $1,808.66. So we'll have to do a little more investigating. Go back to my payment listing and go back to my checking account. Now the best thing to do is just go line item by line item, work our way down and see if we see anything that's missing. Here's the electronic payment that we made to the IRS. As you can see, this amount, $1592.56, does not appear in the payment listing. So it looks like we have a payment that hit our bank statement but did not get entered in UAN. So we need to go back and post that electronic payment in UAN. Minimize these screens again. And again, we need to save what we have and close. To do an electronic payment, we'll go into Accounting, Transactions, and Payments. Click the Add button and choose Electronic. Our vendor is the IRS. And remember to date this transaction in the month that we're reconciling. You can backdate electronic payments. So let's go back to our checking account and see when this posted. It looks like this payment was posted on March 13th, 2014. Enter in a quantity of 1. The description is our IRS payment. And the amount is $1592.56. For a little comic relief, we're going to charge this to our salaries trustees accounts. Don't tell that to your trustees or local government services for that matter. Of course, this is just for a screencast. I had to appropriate money in a random account so I could show you the transaction. Now that we have our amounts in there, we'll click the Save button and close. We can post and print. We'll say that the item's printed successfully. We'll go back into our bank reconciliation form. Again, we'll get the note that transactions have been posted since our last bank reconciliation was saved. And here you can see our electronic payment has now been posted to the system, so we'll clear that. Our cleared payments amounts also changed, so we'll go back to our bank rec worksheet. So in our bank reconciliation worksheet, we can now see that the cleared payments is $29,794.13. Now we still have a discrepancy here of $216.10. I'm going to go ahead and move on to step 4. I'm going to calculate outstanding payments and compare it to the system. I know that this step 4 is going to help me find some discrepancies in payments as well. So really you can do step 3 and step 4 together. Do step 3 first and then subsequently complete step 4. If you still have a discrepancy in step 4, then we need to go back and investigate further. Step 4. Calculate outstanding payments and compare it to system. The first thing we need are outstanding payments from the prior month, which can be found on the bank reconciliation report from the prior month. We'll go back into UAN and we'll open up our bank reconciliation report. As you can see, our outstanding payments from our February bank rec equal $52.28. Go back to our bank rec worksheet and enter in that amount. Now we need our current month payments, and that's the total from the payment listing. Go back to our bank reconciliation, and here's our payment listing. And the total from the payment listing is $29,974.13. Line 4 will take it from line 3 in step 3 above. It's just an automatic field. Also, line 5 will automatically calculate, subtracting line 4 from line 3. Now we need our outstanding payments, located on the Primary Payments tab on the Bank Reconciliation form. We'll go back into UAN, and our total outstanding payments are $52.28. This leaves us with a discrepancy of $36.10. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, wait a second, this guy told me not to move on until I have a 0 on the bottom line. That's true, and most of you probably will end up with 0 as far as your discrepancies are concerned. But what I had to do was manipulate the data set in order to show you some transactions in UAN and outside of UAN at the bank on the checking account statement just to create discrepancies. Now that I've been able to explain that, I do want to investigate this outstanding payment of $52.28. So we'll go back to our bank reconciliation form. This warrant is warrant 19-689, and it's a prior year warrant from 2013 to Delta Dental for $52.28. We call the vendor, they say they never received the check. So we're going to have to void a prior year warrant. In order to do that, we'll complete a fund balance adjustment. So I'll close out of the form, go into Accounting, Utilities, Fund Balance Adjustment Utility. Click the Add button. We'll receive a system message. Fund balance adjustments modify the current year's beginning fund balances and should only be posted if absolutely necessary. These adjustments will be scrutinized closely during your audit. Say OK to that. The fund that we paid this payment out of was the general fund, and it's a prior year warrant adjustment as the type. If we click on the number field, the warrant will automatically pull in from the information from the previous year. Choose the warrant. Our adjustment amount is a positive $52.28. Remember, it's a fund balance adjustment, so we're increasing cash by voiding a payment. Choose the date, which is the date of our reconciliation, and our reason is a lost check. Click the Post button and close. You would want to print the fund balance adjustment report, but for the sake of time, I'm going to say no. Now we can go back into our bank reconciliation form. Please note, transactions have been posted since this bank reconciliation was saved. Some calculations may have changed. Go to our Payments tab, and as you can see, I now have a checkbox that's available to click as Void. We'll void the payment. That leaves us with 0 outstanding payments. So we'll change that on our bank reconciliation worksheet. And then for our prior year warrants that we marked void, we'll make that $52.28. It still doesn't change anything as far as our discrepancy, but we did take care of a prior year warrant that we know is never going to be paid. So if line 8 is 0, move on to step 5. If line 8 is not 0, you need to make sure you've cleared the correct warrants and electronic payments. As I explained before, we're going to have this discrepancy. We will take care of it, however, later on in class. Step 5. Clear adjustments. If you made payment and/or receipt adjustments or fund balance adjustments in the month of reconciliation, these must be cleared on the Primary Adjustments tab. The original payment and/or receipt amount will still be listed on the Primary Payments and/or Receipts tab, so it's necessary to clear any adjustments. Remember that we made a payment adjustment earlier in this class, and we just made a fund balance adjustment. So we'll go back into UAN. You can see we're on the Primary Adjustments tab, and to clear the adjustments that we've made, we just click each checkbox. Step 6. Clear reinvested interest receipts. Reinvested interest receipts must be cleared on the Secondaries and Investments tab. Reinvested interest receipts will not show up to clear on the Primary Receipts tab on the bank reconciliation form. All investment and/or checking transfers will automatically be cleared on the Secondaries Investments tab as well. Just to give you an example, I have entered a reinvested interest receipt into UAN, and it has been cleared. So here's our interest receipt to our money market account for $58.18. Step 7. Balance comparisons. If you still haven't reconciled after step 6, the balance comparison could be a helpful tool to discover errors. If you click the plus button next to each account, the screen will display all transactions posted in UAN in those accounts. However, many of the errors discovered in the balance comparisons should have been discovered from the steps above, so the source of the discrepancy is more than likely more complex than a simple posting error. I'll take you back into UAN just to show you the Balance Comparisons tab. And as you can see, if you click the smaller plus button, it gives you a listing of all the transactions in UAN during the period that you're reconciling. You can do the same thing for your investment accounts. Step 8. Other adjusting factors. Other adjusting factors were discussed in detail in Step 2, so if you have questions on that, you can see Step 2 for the Excel spreadsheet. However, I will just show you the screen in UAN. Please note the instructions at the top of the screen. Other adjusting factors entered below will be used for reconciliation calculations only. They will not correct inaccurate account balances in UAN. Any bookkeeping issues that have created OAS for this bank reconciliation should be resolved before posting the next bank reconciliation. If you have UAN balance adjustments, you could have receipts not in UAN or payments not in UAN, and then the accompanying notes. Also, if you have bank balance adjustments, which we did earlier in this screencast, you could have deflating bank errors, inflating bank errors, or pre-conversion payments, and notes accompanying those as well. Step 9. Investment and/or secondary checking account reconciliation. If you still have a discrepancy and you're confident that the source of the error is not in your primary checking account, then you must reconcile your investments. UAN now requires the reconciliation of all accounts, including investments in secondary checking accounts. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to do our investment and/or secondary checking account balances from our most current year end. Make sure to change the year to the most recent prior year, as the system defaults to the current year reports. So we need our investment balances in UAN. We can find those in Accounting, Reports and Statements, Investment Reports, Investment Detail, and remember to change the year to 2013. Our most recent prior year is now within the software. It's not in the prior year reports. We'll change the year to 2013. We'll choose the investments and click Display. Both of our investment balances will be listed. If I go back to my bank reconciliation worksheet, I'll split the screen for you, and we'll have to do a little math on this worksheet. We'll add together our two balances. Our first balance is $195,758.45 plus our second balance in our Super Saver account, which is $130,322.01. Now we don't have any secondary checking account balances, but if you do in your entity, you'd want to go into Accounting, Reports and Statements, Checking Account Reports, and look at the secondary checking account ledger. Choose the checking accounts and display. I won't have any data for that because we didn't have any secondary checking accounts in my data set. Now we need our balances from our investment and/or secondary checking accounts from the bank. Let's take our balances down here. $195,754.71. And we need to add that to our other account, which is $130,322.01. If line 3 is 0, then you know the error is in the current year, and see step 9a. Most likely it's a failure to post interest to an investment and/or secondary checking account. If line 3 is not 0, then this is a prior year error, and we'll skip to step 9b. Just so you can see step 9a, even though we're not going to do it, you would print off your investment detail report and your secondary checking account ledger, and you would compare the most recent UAN balances in the reports above to the most recent investment and/or secondary checking account balances. If no error is found in the most recent statements, then move to the prior statement and continue the process until the error is discovered. If you need to see specific interest receipts, you'd view the investment activity report. We're going to move on to step 9b. The only way to correct a prior year error in the current year is through a fund balance adjustment. It's important that you discover the source of the error rather than just plugging a fund balance adjustment for the amount of the discrepancy in the current year. Once you find the source of the error, most likely a failure to post interest to an investment and/or secondary checking account, or you posted too much interest in our case, you can post a fund balance adjustment for the amount of the discrepancy. In accounting, utilities, fund balance adjustment utility, add. The fund balance adjustment can subsequently be cleared on the Primary Adjustments tab of the bank reconciliation. You want to print the following items for the prior year, which we've already printed those reports. We'll compare the UAN balances in the reports above to the investment and/or secondary checking account balances from the bank during the same period. Again, we've already completed this process. If no error is found in the most recent prior year statements, then you would want to move to the prior statement and continue the process until the error is discovered. Continue to the next year if the error is not discovered in the most recent prior year, although it would be very rare for an error to carry through more than one prior year. We've already found our error. I'll go back into UAN, and we're going to add a fund balance adjustment. We'll say OK to the system message again. We're going to say this is in the general fund, and this is just going to be a fund balance correction. We posted too much interest in UAN, so we need to decrease the UAN balance by $3.74. We'll date the adjustment in the month that we're reconciling, and our reason is we posted too much interest in UAN in 2013. Click the Post button and close. I won't worry about printing the report. We'll go into Bank Reconciliation and Edit and Post. And if I go to the Primary Adjustments tab and clear our adjustment, you'll see that we get our green check mark, which means we are reconciled, and we're ready to post and print. Step 10. Reconciliation and Post. When the bank reconciliation is reconciled, a green check mark will replace the red X as soon as you reconcile, regardless of what tab you are on in the bank rec. If you have questions on how UAN calculates the prior and/or current year UAN balances, click on the blue question marks beside the respective balances. When you're ready to post and print, simply click the Post Print button. Thank you for using this screencast on reconciling your bank statement in UAN. For further information, you may contact the UAN support line at 800-833-8261 or by email at uan_support@ohioauditor.gov.